Welcome back to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So today we are unpacking a story that I think it genuinely just broke our collective brains for about a week.
Oh, it really did. It felt like a glitch in the simulation.
Totally. I want you to cast your mind back to early February 2023.
Doesn't feel that long ago, but in internet years.
It's ancient history. So you're in, say, a parking lot in Billings, Montana. It's freezing cold. You look up and there's this thing.
Right. It's not a plane. It's not a cloud.
No, it's bright white orb, brighter than the moon, just hanging there in the middle of the day.
And for a few days, that single orb was, I think, literally the most famous object on planet Earth.
It was. We all saw the memes, the panic, people on their lawns with binoculars. We are talking, of course, about the 2023 Chinese balloon incident.
Right.
And I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's just a balloon. We all moved on. But when we actually dug into the documents for this deep dive.
The intelligence reports, the debris analysis.
Yeah, all of it. It turns out this was not just a balloon.
No, not even close. It's a story that starts with a piece of plastic and ends with the first ever air-to-air kill by the most advanced fighter jet in human history.
It's wild.
It's a story about high-tech espionage, but also kind of a comedy of errors.
Right. And it reveals this weird new world of what they call gray zone warfare, where the lines between, say, civilian research and military spying are just completely blurred.
They're gone.
So we're going to cover all of that today. We've got a lot of ground to cover, from the technical specs that are going to blow your mind to the shoot everything panic that happened right after.
Yeah, that was a time.
Our mission today is to move past the UFO headlines and really understand what this machine actually was, why it was there, and whether it was a huge mistake or a masterstroke.
And I think the best place to start is just to completely dismantle the image that pops into your head when I say the word balloon.
Right. Because when I hear weather balloon, I'm picturing like a latex party balloon, maybe 5 or 6 feet wide.
Carrying a little styrofoam box with a thermometer.
Exactly. You pop it, it's gone.
That is precisely what this was not. If you look at the scale of this thing, based on the military's recovery data, it is just staggering.
Okay, so how big are we talking?
We're talking about a balloon envelope that was 200 feet tall.
200 feet.
Yes. That's 61 meters.
Okay, let's visualize that. 200 feet. That is a 20-story building.
Exactly. Imagine a skyscraper made of thin plastic floating in the stratosphere.
If you put the Statue of Liberty next to it, the balloon would be towering over it.
Absolutely. And that's just the balloon itself. That's not even what it was carrying.
Right, the payload.
The technology bay, as they called it. U.S. officials described the equipment hanging under this thing as being the size of 2 to 3 school buses.
2 to 3 school buses dangling at 60,000 feet.
Just hanging up there.
That is a terrifying amount of hardware to have just drifting over your house.
And it was heavy. The commander of NORAD, General Van Herk, he estimated the payload weighed over 2,000 pounds.
So nearly a metric ton.
Right. You do not put a metric ton of equipment on a balloon unless you have a very specific, very complex mission in mind.
And to run all that, 3 school buses worth of electronics, you need some serious power. You can't just slap a few AA batteries in there.
No. And that was one of the first huge giveaways, that this wasn't for, checking the humidity.
Right.
The structure had these massive solar arrays. We're talking about 16 individual solar panels mounted on the payload.
16 of them.
And intelligence analysts figured these panels could generate up to 10,000 watts of power.
10,000 watts. Okay, put that in context. What does a normal weather balloon use?
A standard one. A radiosonde. It uses a tiny battery, maybe a few watts, just enough to send a radio ping.
A few watts versus 10,000.
The different universe. 10,000 watts is enough to run a large central air conditioning system, or like a whole house.
Yeah.
You only need that kind of juice if you're running active, energy-intensive sensors.
Specifically, something like synthetic aperture radar.
Exactly. This is a really key piece of the puzzle. Most cameras are passive, right? They just record light.
So if there are clouds or if it's nighttime, you're blind.
You're blind. But synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, is active. It shoots radio waves down to the ground, and then it measures the bounce back.
And that lets it build a picture.
It allows the craft to create these incredibly high-resolution 3D images, even through thick cloud cover or in total darkness. So it's not just looking.
It's scanning.
It's mapping. And it wasn't just mapping the ground. The debris analysis also found antennas capable of signals intelligence.
So it's not just looking, it's listening too.
Ideally, yes.
Mm.
The idea is it could potentially pick up signals from mobile phones, radios, military communications.
So it's trying to build a picture of the entire electronic landscape below. Who's talking, what frequencies are being used, that kind of thing.
Exactly. How does the military communicate at a specific base?
That is incredibly sophisticated. But here's a part of the source material that I found just absolutely mind-blowing.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. We think of this as Chinese technology, right? Some secret weapon from the PLA. But when the FBI engineers finally fished it out of the Atlantic and cracked it open, what'd they find inside?
This is where the story gets so weird. They did not find some mysterious futuristic alien tech.
No.
They found off-the-shelf Western technology.
It's wild.
It really is. The debris analysis, it identified parts from major U.S. companies. We're talking about components from Texas Instruments, from Amphenol, Omega Engineering.
So wait, in theory, if I had a big enough credit card, I could go online and buy the parts to build the guts of a spy balloon.
To a pretty significant extent, yeah. It highlights this strange paradox of modern espionage.
It's like a hybrid.
It's a hybrid of proprietary military design and stuff you can literally order from a catalog. It's a Frankenstein monster.
It is, and it gets even more ironic.
The internet connection.
The internet connection. Reports indicated the balloon was using a commercially available U.S. internet service provider for its navigation.
Let me just get this straight. The Chinese spy balloon was using our internet to navigate over our country, to spy on us.
According to U.S. intelligence officials, that is exactly what was happening. It really blurs the line between, foreign adversary and global customer.
It's almost funny in a very dark way.
It is. But this brings us to that huge debate that just dominated the news cycle for that whole week.
The weather versus spy debate.
Right, because China had a story, and they stuck to it.
They did. From the very beginning, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs had a very specific narrative. They said, quote, "It is a civilian airship used for research, mainly meteorological purposes."
The classic, it's just a weather balloon defense.
Exactly. And they claimed it was a case of force majeure.
An act of God, basically.
Right, an act of God. They argued that the westerlies, those strong winds that blow west to east, just blew it off course, and that the airship had, and this is their phrase, limited self-steering capability.
Limited self-steering. That sounds like a very polite way of saying, oops, we lost control of it.
It does. But the U.S., they didn't buy that for a second.
Why not, though? I mean, if the wind is blowing east and the balloon goes east, isn't that at least plausible?
It is plausible for a totally passive object, sure. But the U.S. military and intelligence agencies, they pointed out that the balloon had propellers and an actual rudder.
So it wasn't just a passive object drifting on the wind like a dandelion seed. It could maneuver.
It was driving.
It was driving.
Now look, it's not a fighter jet. It can't turn on a dime or fly against a hurricane. But it could change its altitude to catch different wind currents. And it had propulsion to assist its path.
And U.S. officials said it appeared to loiter.
Loiter. That's such a creepy word in this context, isn't it?
Yeah.
It implies intent.
It does. If you're just drifting with the wind, you move at the speed of the wind.
Right.
If you stop and hang out over a specific spot, you are doing that on purpose. And that brings us to the flight path.
Which is where the whole accidental tourist theory gets a little complicated.
So let's trace this route. Because it was a long, long journey. It didn't just appear out of nowhere over Montana.
No. It launched from Hainan, China. That's an island on the south coast. And it's known to be a major base for the People's Liberation Army's surveillance balloon program.
Okay, and get this. U.S. intelligence was actually tracking it from the moment it launched.
They were. Retrospective analysis showed it was tracked near Hainan as early as January 15th.
So wait, hold on. We knew about it before it even got here.
We did. Now here's the twist that actually supports the accident theory, at least in part.
Okay.
The original trajectory, it looked like it was heading towards Guam and Hawaii.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, those are huge U.S. military hubs in the Pacific. If you're going to spy, that's where you'd go.
That's a prime target.
Yeah.
But just before it reached that area, it took a really sharp turn north. It got caught in a massive weather front.
So the blown-off course excuse might actually have some truth to it.
It might. Some U.S. officials later assessed that the balloon's entry into the continental U.S. might have actually been an accident, caused by winds that its motors just couldn't fight against.
So where did it go?
It ended up flying over the Aleutian Islands on January 28th, then across Alaska, then into Canadian airspace over the Yukon and British Columbia.
It's literally touring the Arctic.
But then, on January 31st, it drops down into Idaho. And suddenly, It's not over the ocean or empty tundra anymore.
It's over the American mainland, and this is where that opportunity aspect kicks in.
Exactly. Even if it arrived there by accident, once it was there, it seems the operators decided to, well, make the most of it.
It entered Montana on February 1st, and Montana isn't just empty space and mountains,
Now, Montana is home to Malmstrom Air Force Base.
which is one of the most sensitive military sites in the entire U.S.
It houses the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. We're talking about the nuclear silos. And the balloon was spotted loitering right over that area.
That is bold. Even if you stumble there by accident, stopping to take pictures of the nuclear silos is a pretty aggressive move.
It is, and that's when the cat and mouse game really began. But remarkably, it wasn't the military that announced it to the world first.
No, it was civilians. I love this part of the story.
It's fantastic.
It wasn't some press conference at the Pentagon. It was a guy looking out his window.
Chase Doak, a former editor at the Billings Gazette, just a guy in Billings. He sees reports that the airspace is closed, looks out his window, and sees this white thing.
Thinks it's a UFO or a star at first.
Right. And he calls his friend, a photographer named Larry Mayer.
And Mayer uses this massive telephoto lens to get those incredible high-res photos that ended up on every news channel in the world.
And once those pictures hit the internet, the secret was out. You couldn't hide it anymore.
Which raises the big question everyone was asking at the time, why didn't we just shoot it down right then and there?
Yeah.
It's over Montana. There's plenty of open space. Why wait?
It's a totally valid question, and it was a huge point of political contention. People were furious.
Oh, yeah.
But the military's reasoning was basically twofold. First, and most obviously, safety.
Right. Gravity is a law you can't really repeal.
Precisely. We just talked about the size, 20 stories tall, 2,000-pound payload. You shoot that at 60,000 feet, the debris field is going to be massive.
Even in a state like Montana, you can't guarantee it won't hit a farmhouse or a car or a person.
The risk is too high.
Yeah.
And the second reason is much more. Spy versus spy.
Okay.
The U.S. military realized that as long as they knew where it was, they could neutralize it without destroying it.
Yep.
So they jammed its ability to transmit data.
They put it in a digital cage.
Effectively. They just blocked it from phoning home.
Yeah.
But then they went a step further.
U-2s.
They launched U-2 spy planes, the legendary Dragon Lady aircraft, to fly alongside it.
Talk about a high-altitude meet and greet.
The U-2s fly at 70,000 feet, so they were actually looking down on the balloon. They took these incredibly detailed photos of the equipment. They gathered its electronic signatures.
They basically reverse-engineered the spy balloon while it was still in the air.
That's it. It's such a power move. Go ahead, fly over us. We're going to learn more about you than you learned about us.
And the Pentagon later said the balloon had limited additive value for China because of that.
But it was a gold mine of intelligence for the U.S.
So the balloon keeps drifting across the Midwest. It goes over Missouri, near Whiteman Air Force Base.
Home of the B-2 stealth bomber.
So it's essentially taking a grand tour of America's most strategic assets.
And the whole time, the FAA is clearing airspace, flights are getting grounded or diverted. It was causing total chaos in the civil aviation world.
Until finally it reaches the coast. February 4th, 2023. The balloon is off the coast of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
The end of the line. The military had been waiting for it to cross that coastline so the debris would fall into the ocean, minimizing the risk.
And they sent in the big guns.
Oh, yeah. An F-22 Raptor from Langley Air Force Base. This is the U.S. Air Force's premier stealth fighter. It is the Lamborghini of the skies.
And what's really notable here is that the F-22 had never actually scored an air-to-air kill before this.
That's right. All that technology, all those years in service, designed to fight Soviet MiGs, and its first official kill is a balloon.
It's a little bit ironic, isn't it? A fifth-generation stealth fighter against a technology that was invented in the 18th century.
The pilot, operating at an altitude of 58,000 feet, fired a single AIM-9X Sidewinder missile.
Now, shooting a balloon isn't as simple as it sounds, is it?
No, because a heat-seeking missile needs a heat source, and a balloon is usually cold.
Right.
But the sun had been heating up that white envelope in those huge solar panels all day. That temperature contrast was just enough for the missile to lock on.
And I remember seeing the footage. It wasn't a big Hollywood explosion.
No, not at all.
It was more like the balloon just collapsed on itself.
Right. The missile didn't so much blow to smithereens as it just punctured the envelope and destroyed the structure. The payload then plummeted into the Atlantic Ocean, about 6 nautical miles off the coast.
And the water depth there was really shallow, right? Only about 47 feet.
Incredibly shallow for a recovery operation like this. It made the Navy's job much, much easier. They had divers and unmanned underwater vehicles down there almost immediately.
And they recovered a lot of it, didn't they?
They did. By February 17th, they'd recovered all the priority debris, the sensors, the electronics. They hauled up the massive solar panels, the antennas, everything.
And it all got sent to the FBI lab in Quantico for analysis.
I can just imagine the scene in Quantico. A bunch of FBI agents and engineers standing around a wet, crumpled pile of circuits trying to figure out what it all means.
And confirming that, yes, this was a surveillance platform, not a weather balloon. But honestly, the story didn't end with the splashdown.
No. In fact, things got even weirder immediately after.
This is what I call the shoot everything phase.
It really felt like that, didn't it? Suddenly, every single day, there was a new object being shot down.
It felt like an invasion was happening.
And it was a direct result of the big balloon incident. After that, NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, they adjusted their radar filters.
Explain that. What does that mean, adjusted the filters?
Well, radars are designed to look for specific threats. Fast-moving things like missiles, fighter jets, bombers. They generally filter out slow-moving clutter.
Like birds, clouds, or balloons.
Or balloons. It's called a velocity gate. If something is moving too slowly, the computer basically just ignores it so the operators aren't overwhelmed with noise.
The balloons were there the whole time. We just had the settings on ignore.
Essentially, yes. So they opened the aperture, they lowered the speed threshold, and suddenly the radar screens just lit up. They started seeing objects everywhere.
And because everyone was on such high alert, the reaction was, shoot first, ask questions later.
Precisely. Let's just look at the timeline. February 10th, just 6 days after the big one, they shoot down an object over northern Alaska, described as the size of a small car.
Then the very next day, February 11th.
A cylindrical object over the Yukon Territory in Canada, shot down by an F-22 again.
And then February 12th.
An octagonal object over Lake Huron. This one was actually shot down by an F-16.
An octagon? That just sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does. And the speculation just ran wild. Was it aliens? Was it a massive coordinated attack from another country? But the reality, as the dust settled, it turned out to be much more mundane.
The great anticlimax.
The great anticlimax. The U.S. government later assessed that these 3 objects were most likely benign.
Just stuff.
Yeah, probably private hobbyist balloons or weather monitoring equipment.
And there was that report about the Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade, right? An amateur radio club in Illinois?
Yes. The Northern Illinois Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade. They reported one of their Pico balloons. It's a tiny Mylar balloon that cost about $12. Went missing.
And it was around the same time and location as the Yukon shootdown.
The timing and location matched up almost perfectly.
Just pause on that for a second. We used a missile that costs what?
An AM-9X costs roughly $400,000.
$400,000.
And for the Lake Huron object, the first missile actually missed, so they had to fire a second one. The total cost for the missiles used in just those 3 days was at least $1.5 million.
$1.5 million to shoot down what might have been a $12 science project from a hobby club.
It perfectly illustrates the asymmetry of this whole gray zone warfare concept. You can force your opponent to spend millions of dollars and deploy advanced aircraft to deal with something that costs pennies.
It's the ultimate return on investment if you're the adversary.
Or just a really, really bad day if you're the hobby club.
Hey guys, our science project just got intercepted by the U.S. Air Force.
Right.
So let's zoom out a bit. We've covered the tech, the path, the shooting spree. What was the fallout from all this? Because this wasn't just about balloons. This was a major diplomatic incident.
It froze U.S.-China relations instantly. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was scheduled to make a huge trip to Beijing, the first visit like that since 2018. It was supposed to be a chance to stabilize the relationship.
And he canceled it.
Yeah.
Immediately.
He had to. You can't go to Beijing and shake hands while a Chinese spy craft is just drifting over the American heartland. It would have been political suicide.
And China's reaction wasn't exactly apologetic, was it?
No. Initially, they expressed regret for the unintentional entry, sticking to the weather balloon story. But once the U.S. shot it down, their tone hardened.
Right.
They accused the U.S. of overreacting, of violating international norms, of engaging in an indiscriminate use of force. They even demanded we give the debris back.
To which the U.S. said, absolutely not.
Right. The U.S. House of Representatives voted 419-0 to condemn China for the incident.
419-0. That's a rare moment of complete bipartisan unity in Washington.
It really is.
So in the end, the biggest question of all, did the balloon actually work? Did China get the data they were after?
The intelligence verdict, which came out months later, was surprisingly reassuring for the U.S. Officials stated that while the balloon was absolutely carrying spy gear,
No question about that.
it did not appear to transmit data back to China during the U.S. overflight.
And that's because of the jamming we talked about.
Because of the U.S. countermeasures and maybe some technical failures on the balloon's part as well, it seems that the digital cage actually worked.
So they flew a building-sized balloon across an entire continent, caused a global incident, spent a fortune on the equipment, and got nothing.
Well, nothing might be strong. They got to test the U.S. response time. They got to see how our political system reacts to a slow-moving crisis. They exposed a huge gap in our radar coverage.
So in terms of metadata about how America works, they probably learned a lot.
A ton. But in terms of getting the nuclear codes or radar frequencies at Malmstrom, it seems they got very little.
And it brings up this concept you mentioned, the domain awareness gap that General Van Herk talked about. It seems crazy that we didn't know this was happening before.
And that's the really scary part. It turns out this wasn't the first time this has happened.
Really?
Retroactive analysis showed that Chinese balloons had flown over the U.S. at least 3 times during the Trump administration, and once earlier in the Biden administration.
But nobody noticed. How is that possible?
They were often categorized as UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena at the time. The radar filters, like we said, were set to ignore them, so they just slipped right through the cracks. It was only after this big public event that we went back and connected the dots.
That is deeply unsettling. It means the sky has been full of eyes that we just chose not to see.
And not just over the U.S., this is a global program. Similar balloons have been sighted over Japan, India, Taiwan, all over Latin America. It's a worldwide surveillance effort.
So what was the final response, beyond just, being more aware? The U.S. didn't just shoot down the balloon. They went after the companies behind it, right?
Yes, this is the economic warfare side of it.
Yeah.
The U.S. Commerce Department added 6 Chinese entities to their blacklist, the entity list.
And these were companies like, I saw the names, Beijing Nanjiang Aerospace Technology and Eaglesmen Aviation Science and Technology Group.
Eaglesmen Aviation, yeah. Sounds like a bad translation of a superhero team.
It does, but they're serious defense contractors. And by putting them on the entity list?
The U.S. makes it incredibly difficult for them to buy American technology.
Yeah.
Which, as we noted, is deeply ironic because the balloon itself was full of American technology.
It's just such a tangled web. You have
Yeah.
American chips inside a Chinese balloon, navigating via American internet, being shot down by an American missile, leading to sanctions on Chinese companies that were probably buying parts from American suppliers.
That is the reality of the 21st century economy and 21st century warfare. You can't fully untangle the two.
So before we wrap up, I just want to go back to the human element for a second. The people on the ground. We talked about Chase Stoke and Billings.
Right.
But the reaction across the country was fascinating. In Myrtle Beach, people were literally sitting in lawn chairs on the beach watching the intercept like it was an air show.
It became a cultural phenomenon. I mean, Saturday Night Live did a sketch where Bowen Yang played the balloon.
I saw that one.
It was personified, became a character in our national story.
Congrats, you shot a balloon.
Exactly. But underneath all that humor, there was some genuine anxiety. It sort of shattered the illusion that North America is a fortress. We're used to thinking that major threats are far away. This was literally in our backyard, visible to the naked eye.
It made the abstract concept of geopolitical tension very, very concrete.
And it showed that the next big threat might not be a hypersonic missile or a massive cyber attack. It might be something slow, silent, and deceptively simple.
So what does this all mean for the future? Are we just going to see more and more balloons?
I think we'll see a shift. The element of surprise is gone now, right? The radars are tuned, the protocols are in place, but the concept of high-altitude, long-endurance surveillance, that's not going away.
Because it's cheap?
It's way cheaper than satellites, it can provide better resolution for some types of intelligence, and it's harder to attribute if you don't get caught.
It's the gray zone. Not quite peace, not quite war, just awkward, high-stakes maneuvering.
And we just have to get used to it. The sky is getting crowded.
Well, that's a comforting thought to leave us with. The sky's crowded and the balloons are watching.
Yeah.
But seriously, this deep dive has really changed how I look at this event. It wasn't just a weird week in February. It was a real wake-up call.
A wake-up call about our blind spots, our supply chains, and just how fragile international diplomacy really is.
We went from a weird star over Montana to a $400,000 missile shot over the Atlantic. It's a story that really has everything.
And we're likely only scratching the surface of what is floating up there in the stratosphere right now.
On that note, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We spent days, the entire world, obsessing over a balloon the size of a building. It was huge. It was obvious.
Right.
But if a balloon that big can drift across an entire continent before we decide what to do with it,
Right.
what does that say about our readiness for the things that are actually trying to hide?
And consider this, too. If modern espionage runs on commercial internet providers and parts you can basically buy online, who else is building their own private air force right now?
Something to mull over the next time you look up at the sky. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay curious.